Our next speaker, Ralph Raico, is a retired professor of history at State University College of New York at Buffalo. A popular lecturer for the Ludwig von Mises Institute, the Cato Institute, the Institute for Humane Studies, and many other organizations. Ralph is also the author of many scholarly essays and articles. He attended Ludwig von Mises's famous seminar in New York, and he translated Mises's book, Liberalism. He has contributed many fantastic articles to the Future Freedom Foundation over the years, and his talk today is entitled, The Case for an America First Foreign Policy. Ralph Raico.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be at this great conference, and have to thank Bumper for his actually surprisingly skimpy introduction of me. And also I have to thank him for placing my talk between Jim Bovarts and Bob Higgs. It'll really make me seem great. Okay, we're going to be talking today about the, what? Louder? Yeah. I'll be talking today about the case for an America First foreign policy, named, of course, after the last great conservative anti-war movement that attacked Franklin Roosevelt in 1940-41. In Moscow, on Christmas Day, 1991, Christmas according to the Western churches, but not the Eastern churches, the red flag was lowered for the last time from over the Kremlin. Thank God it was the end of the Soviet Union and the Cold War. The Cold War lasted for nearly half a century. It included two big hot wars, cost trillions of dollars, and radically changed American society forever. With the downfall of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War, many of us thought that the time had come for a great debate to rethink and revise the foundations of U.S. foreign policy. What should be the aims of a foreign policy, and what should be the mission of the U.S. armed forces? That debate never took place. Now, a decade and a half after the collapse of communism, the need for such a debate is more pressing than ever, as the U.S. government embarks on an even more extensive and burdensome war, a war against world terrorism and world evil. My view is that our course should be anchored in the traditional American policy that served us so well in the first 100 years of our life as a nation, a policy that I'll be calling America First. The record is laid out in a small book by the great historian Charles Beard, published in 1940, A Foreign Policy for America. Charles Beard was a professor at Columbia and president of the American Historical Association, considered the dean of American historians, until he concluded and documented that Franklin Roosevelt was not really all that sincere when he told the American people before Pearl Harbor that he was working night and day to keep us out of war. Whereupon Beard was suddenly demonized by the profession and dismissed as a hopeless nutcase. This was Beard's thesis in that small book. In our dealings abroad, we should basically follow the guidelines laid out by George Washington in his farewell address to the American people. The great rule of conduct in regard to foreign nations is, in extending our commercial relations, we should have with them as little political connection as possible. This statement by Washington that we may hear maybe once or twice during this seminar had involved three basic points. First, we should engage in mutually beneficial, peaceful commerce with the rest of the world, but forcing nothing, as Washington was careful to add. Second, while trading with them, we would avoid entanglements in the political affairs of other countries and in their quarrels with other nations. Finally, we should always remain strong enough to defend ourselves from attack. This system was endorsed by John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and the other founders. That was no accident. Non-intervention was the natural counterpart to the form of government, the republic, which they had instituted. The monarchies of Europe were all massive war machines, systematically exploiting the people to finance the never-ending conflicts and to support the military and civilian bureaucracy that those conflicts necessitated. The old monarchies were dedicated to the pomp and glory and power of the state. America would be different. Novus Ordo Seclorum, as you'll find still on the back of dollar bills, the new order of the ages. Here, the rights of the people, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, of all things, the pursuit of happiness. That was our mainstay. Government power was to be strictly limited, mainly exercised by the localities and the states. Hence the 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which still reads, for all the good it does us, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution or prohibited to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Taxes would be low and the public debt would soon be liquidated, ensuring that the citizens, not subjects, would not be routinely plundered as was the European and monarchical way. In order to forestall high taxes, debt, and the centralization of power, there was a crucial precondition, however. We had to steer clear of war. Here is the considered opinion of James Madison. Of all the enemies of true liberty, war is perhaps the most to be dreaded because it comprises and develops the germ of every other. War is the parent of armies. From these proceed debts and taxes, and armies, debts, and taxes are the known instrument for bringing the many under the domination of the few. In war, too, the discretionary power of the executive, that is the president and his minions, is extended. No nation can preserve its freedom in the midst of continual warfare. So the advice of the founders was this: if you want to preserve the system we have established, keep out of wars, except when they are required to defend the United States. Avoid political entanglements overseas, since these are likely to lead us into war. And as Washington also warned in his farewell address, we should treat all foreign nations fairly and equitably, not showing favoritism to any, because he said, the nation which indulges towards another an habitual hatred or an habitual fondness is in some degree a slave. We can call this the policy of America First. It was reiterated by James Monroe, Quincy Adams, Daniel Webster, Henry Clay, Grover Cleveland, and others through the 19th century. America First in no way meant isolation from the rest of the world. This term, isolationism, has turned into a one-word slam dunk in the hands of the proponents of global meddling. It's the only thing that most college students, for instance, remember about American diplomatic history, that in the bad old days, if they remember anything, that in the bad old days we used to be isolationists. But no one was more of a cosmopolitan than Thomas Jefferson. America, following Washington, Jefferson, and the others, welcomed trade and cultural exchanges with all nations while rejecting political connections.